Okay, let's talk about feedback. When we are in managerial roles as business executives, we need to give feedback. Most of the time, it comes as a performance appraisal. People do not like performance appraisals or evaluations, right? They have a negative connotation. People get all nervous. Oh my gosh, I've got my employee evaluation today. I'm so nervous. Oh, why? They don't have to be negative. Employee evaluations can be neutral, they can be positive, they can be growth, professional development. So let's get out of that stigma of what a performance appraisal is. And we don't want to wait until the performance appraisal that takes place once a year to give feedback. Give feedback routinely. As you're walking down the hall and you see someone who's doing excellent work, say so. It helps reinforce that behavior. You see someone who's doing negative activity, somebody who maybe is on the factory floor and doesn't have on his hard hat, catch it immediately. We don't want that to continue. Hard hats must be worn at all times when you are in this particular zone. You want to nip it right there and move forward. Also, maybe we're going to do a management by objectives, right? Peter Drucker. And when we sit down with performance appraisals, we self-assess. Ask the employee to evaluate what he or she has done in the past year to be successful. What did you set up for your goals last year that you were going to do until this point? What did you accomplish? What did you not accomplish? Why not? What goals do you want to set for next year? So that helps. Again, you're giving some autonomy to that worker. You make that person feel involved, a contributor, important. What is the impact of that person? And do you have inter-rater reliability? My mother was a custodian, and she worked at a university, and she always hated performance evaluations. And she would talk to me about it, and her supervisor was one who did not believe in giving 9s or 10s. They had a numeric scale. She did not believe in 9s or 10s. Nobody's perfect. You can't get a 10. 9, you have to be a really high achiever. So basically, she'd grade 8 and below. Well, over in the library, that supervisor with the custodians was overly nice. And he gave 10s to everybody. He'd give a 12 if he could. Is that fair? How can we balance that? We need inter-rater reliability. If we swap them out, we should get the same rating. So how can we see to that? Maybe numeric is not the way to go. Maybe it needs to be a qualitative assessment. How do we do that? Or maybe it needs to be a team who does the evaluation. How can we reward people for positive behavior? I'll give you an example. I do consulting, and I consulted for a hospital, and they don't really have any money to reward behavior, but they wanted to do something. So we came up with this idea where there was a bulletin board right by the cafeteria, a bulletin board so everybody would see it, who comes in and out to eat. And all the employees were given, or the supervisory employees were given raindrops. Okay, they were teardrop construction paper. And it said name and activity and then signature and date. So I had my list of teardrops and I went through the example with them. And on the bulletin board, it said, a drop in the bucket. And there was a picture of a bucket with teardrops going into it, or raindrops going into it. And then a bunch of other raindrops. So somebody did something. Maybe I'm walking behind an orderly, And she stoops down and picks up a piece of gum wrapper that was on the floor. She didn't have to do that. That's not her job. But that's very nice that she did that, because we all need to be proud of our workplace. So I saw her do that. I write her name on this raindrop, what she did. I sign it and date it. I give it to her, and she goes to the bulletin board and takes a stick pin and puts it on the board. So by the end of the month, that bulletin board is full of all these raindrops, all these drops in the bucket. And then at the end of the month, they had a real pail, a bucket, and they take all the raindrops off of the bulletin board, put them in the bucket, and they draw out a name for like a $25 gift card to Red Lobster or something like that. And they actually got the gift cards donated, so it didn't cost them anything. And that was, I mean, people got so excited. And then it ended up being, it was so popular, they drew 5 names at the end of the month. Well, to make it just a little more enticing, at the end of the year, they took all of those raindrops. And so, I mean, if you did numerous kind activities, you might have had 15, 20 raindrops in that bucket. If you didn't do anything, you maybe had 1. And then at the end of the year, they got I don't know if it was Carnival or Norwegian, I don't remember which cruise line it was, but they got a cruise line to donate a cruise for 2. And they put all the raindrops in the bucket, and they just chose 1, and that person earned the cruise for him or her and anyone else of their choosing. And the employees were just thrilled. I mean, it wasn't a raise, it wasn't, they all had equal chance, and they knew that the more good deeds they did, the better chance they had of winning that cruise. It worked, and it was fun. So, and it was public display of that positive behavior. As you know, you want to praise loudly, criticize privately. You have something negative to say, bring that person to your office and talk to the person. You don't want to criticize the person with everyone else around. So that's really important. If you do have someone who's having issues with, behavioral, attitude problems, something like that, you need to have a talk with that person immediately. And then, what are the goals? What are we going to do about this? Help me to help you. How are we going to do that? And then monitor the progress. Once a week, every 3 months, whatever it might be. Putting them on probation for 6 months, whatever. But we need to have something there and give people the opportunity for professional development. If you want them to learn new software, customer service skills, other soft skills or power skills, send them to training. That also helps them. Helps them to be better employees and also helps morale. So when you're giving constructive feedback, be sure that you put some positive in there as well. Just as we talked about earlier in another video segment, we talked about the direct versus the indirect approach. If you have a positive message, use the direct approach. If you have a negative message, it's more indirect, and I put the onus back on me. Well, same thing with a performance evaluation. Regardless, begin with something positive. If the whole performance evaluation is positive, great. But if you have something negative to say, start with the positive and then provide fact, things that cannot be refuted. The dates you were late, and I list all the dates. The dates you left early, and I list all the dates. You can't refute them because here's, I have the time card, here it is, whatever it might be. So, providing that information. But there has to be something good that you can say. And if there isn't, maybe it is time to terminate that person. Be careful of exaggerating. Well, you always, no, they don't always. Careful of that word. Or everyone thinks. Oh, I just love it when students come to me and say, well, everyone in class thinks blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. Nobody else has said anything. What are you, the class designate? So be careful of just exaggerating and just speak for yourself. I statements, I think you need to work on this, rather than you need to work on this. I think you need to work on this.